Welcome and thank you to our viewers from all across the world joining us on the fifth episode of 10 Limited series of Let's Talk Live with Sandy, where we bring awareness and gives a voice to survivors of domestic violence, as well as men and women who are looking for ways of becoming empowered in their lives. Hi, my name is Sandy, and I'm a certified life and health coach. I coach my clients on becoming empowered after abuse, trauma, illness, health, or life setbacks. And I'm currently offering 3 people the opportunity to have complimentary 30-minute sessions called Step Up into Your Greatness, where you will uncover 3 blocks that are keeping you from your greatness. So inbox me if you're interested. I'm also the author of The Unwanted Wife, a #1 bestseller. Great news for most of you who have been waiting for this. The prequel of The Unwanted Wife, The Ungracious Daughter, is set to be released in November. Now, for our main topic, I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today on Let's Talk Live with Sandy, my very good friend, Amy Hill from Australia. Thank you so much for joining us, Amy, on Let's Talk Live with Sandy. Amy is a domestic violence survivor, a mentor, author, and a speaker. We have known each other through our publisher when we met during a retreat last year for our first book. And we discovered that we had similar life stories. So we were both in very abusive domestic violence relationships, which led us to our topic today of domestic violence, abuse, and narcissism. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Amy, my 5th guest on Let's Talk Live with Sandy. Welcome, Amy. Please tell us a little
Thank
bit more
you.
about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that warm introduction and sharing how we know each other. It's been a beautiful journey to be able to support each other through writing our stories. Yeah, so for me, my journey started, well, I guess it starts with childhood trauma. And I found that with a lot of my clients, that's where the trauma actually starts. So I went through some childhood trauma, which I wasn't able to process and deal with at the time. I didn't know what it was. I was only 8 years old. And for me to be able to, like, when it came to my awareness, like what had happened, I was a teenager, and still at that point, I wasn't really able to process it. So it played out in a lot of different ways, like drinking and getting into a toxic relationship. So that was my first relationship. It was very toxic. Alcohol, drugs, abuse. It wasn't good. But that set the standard for me. So that's what I expected in relationships and how to be treated. So that was when I was 17 or 16 for 3 years. And then the next two relationships were better. But then I had a relationship where my partner was cheating on me. He said it was for about 6 weeks. He was seeing someone else. And at this point, we had been together for 3 years. So I was quite invested and had a little boy, although not with him, with their previous partner. And so I was quite heartbroken. I was living interstate, so I moved back home, and I was very vulnerable and had very little self-worth. I was completely blindsided by the fact that he had been seeing someone else. So it really shook me. And because I was in such like a vulnerable place and feeling like with very little self-worth, along came Mr. Prince Charming. So that's when it started for me. So this was my now ex-husband, who, quickly came in, a lot of love bombing, showered me with affection and love. And 6 months later, he relocated us interstate. And that is where like the coercive control started, the gaslighting, and there was some like verbal, emotional, and psychological abuse as well. But it certainly increased when I fell pregnant. That is when things just got so much worse. He was also an alcoholic, which fueled a lot of things. And I guess for me, that's what I kind of justified his behavior. And so I kept saying to myself and everyone else, like, it's the alcohol, like, it's not him. And so that's how I was justifying it and thinking, well, if I can solve that problem, like the alcohol problem, then, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Living in hope, like we can fix them.
No, we can't fix them. And
Yeah.
we think, because we think, we both have similar experiences, like going back from childhood. I was abused as a child and not being able to process it. And then finding out that, we feel that we're better and that we can fix other people.
Yeah.
But we haven't even fixed ourselves yet.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. The
Yeah.
only person you can fix is yourself.
So tell me what happened after you got pregnant.
Yeah. So the other thing is he eventually was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And at the time, I didn't really even know what narcissism was, let alone that there was an extent of having a disorder for it.
I was just going to say, like not a lot of people know that you can actually be diagnosed with something like this.
Yeah, that's right. It was only when we were going through court that he was assessed, and that's when it came out. Actually, no, that's not true. That was when he was assessed, but I found out when I took him to see a psychologist for his drinking problems, because it just got so bad. And so I took him to see this psychologist to help with his alcohol problems. And she, like after 3 sessions, he stormed out the room because he was trying to prove that he didn't have a problem. And he was just saying, well, champagne for breakfast, and, a couple of bottles because it's Wednesday, hump day, and a couple of bottles because it's Friday, end of the week. It's like, always a reason, an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
And so after the third session, he stormed out, and that's when the psychologist turned to me in shock because no one stormed out of her office before. She turned to me and said, Amy, this is domestic violence. And I was shocked. Like, I was just sitting there. I remember my shoulders were hunched over, like my hands were like on my lap, and I just had tears coming down my face, thinking this was my last resort. And she said, like, not only this, but he like actually has like mental problems. Like he needs to be assessed for narcissistic personality disorder. I was like, whoa, what is going on here?
What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, things escalated. After I fell pregnant, there was that's when the physical abuse started, and the psychological abuse was, got so much worse. There was a lot of gaslighting and manipulation. It was like I was constantly second guessing myself. I couldn't trust myself. And I just literally didn't know who I was anymore, because I was just so concerned about, helping him, like keeping him, from not, making a mess of things.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
that's part of gaslighting, when we second guess that maybe we were the one that was in the wrong, or we were the ones that is not doing the right things. So, or like your partner is, we get insecurities basically in ourselves.
Yeah.
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 So now you're being gaslighting, you're having second guessing yourself. So what did you do?
So after I had that realization through the psychologist, that was the first time that, like, it just hadn't occurred to me prior to then. And at this point it had been 5 years. And I just, I was so focused on him. And she said, like, yes, he needs help. That is very clear, like for the alcoholism and the narcissism. But you need help. And I was shocked. I'm like, I'm not the one with the problem here.
Yeah.
And that's why, as I had tears streaming down my face, this is what I thought in my head. Like, I came here to, like, fix the marriage, and the outcome was he's got problems, like, you need help. And yeah, it was just it was crazy. I didn't expect it, but I mean, that was the catalyst. There has to be something. And to be able to get him there was difficult, because
I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of narcissistic alcoholic wants to go to a psychologist?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but it came to the point where I was literally so stressed that my breast milk dried up and I could no longer feed my baby.
Oh no.
Not only that, but he had refused to get a job. So he was actually unemployed for, at this point, 4.5 years, depending on me while he was being an entrepreneur and building up his businesses, which never made a cent. So I was forced to go back to work early because we couldn't afford the rent. We lost our house.
Wow.
And he was ultimately sent to rehab. After he stormed out of the psychologist's office, he was referred to see a psychiatrist, who then booked him into rehab. And another thing with narcissists, right? They love the fantasies, like the idealistic world, and a lot of the grandiose behavior.
Yes.
So get this, he would only go to rehab that was on the beach in another state.
Wow.
Says the guy with, like, no income.
So
So
he thought it was a vacation.
yeah. A funded vacation. Because of course I had to pay for that.
Of course.
And yeah, after 6 weeks, he came out and he started drinking the following day. So that's exactly how he treated it, as a vacation. But it was my opportunity to separate from him, which was, like, the biggest blessing. So so after that, that is when I managed to essentially escape from him, because we didn't have the house together anymore. I moved in with my sister, and that's when things are like, honestly, I don't know if it was worst when we were together or after. Like, it was just so horrendous. So that's when all of the stalking, the harassment, the threats, like all of that started. And that's what I thought, like, maybe it's like just worth being with him so he's not like this. But then I'm like, oh, he wasn't like any better when I was with him either. So it was like, for those 10 years, it was so difficult to get through one day. It was, like I didn't know who I was, and I was like barely surviving each day. It was such a horrendous experience. And then he started 14 court cases against me as another way to try and control me, because that's another thing about narcissists, is that they have this sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
And yeah, and to this day, he believes that I am his property. So unfortunately, that mentality maintains. But yeah, it was just a horrific experience.
So, in your opinion, do you think a narcissist can change, or can become a non-narcissist?
I think, and I've discussed this with a few people, including psychologists and psychiatrists, and the general consensus from our discussions is that if a narcissist wants to change, like, they are the only one who can initiate that change. However, and this is like a real general rule of thumb, so long as they're under the age of 40 and they have that want to change and really like work on themselves, but they have to be committed to it. If like, the longer they leave it in life, if you think about it, it's narcissistic behavior, it's patterns. And it is like a cycle of habits. So the more you stay in this cycle of bad habits and bad behavior, the longer it's ingrained and the harder it is to undo. So that's why, like, just saying generally, like 40. I mean, like, the earlier they find, like, they catch it and they actually want to change. But in my experience, I've never met a narcissist who has changed. So,
well, even to admit that they are.
Exactly. That is not narcissistic, to admit that you're narcissistic.
Exactly. So the one thing that I find in people who've been, like, in bad relationships, in the beginning, like, did you get treated better and then after you lived together?
Yeah. So for the first 6 months, there was a lot of love bombing, and he, showered me with gifts, with interstate and overseas holidays. He would always take me out to fancy restaurants. He had a beautiful apartment on the beach with like a fancy car. And he said he had all of this wealth. He had a lot of like Gucci bags and all of this. So he painted himself in this life, which wasn't even true. The last rent payment he made was via check, which bounced. And his apartment was a fully furnished rental. He literally didn't own anything in there.
Oh.
It was just such, and all of this wealth was in shares, which he lost. So it was just a huge charade.
I know a friend that went through something similar with a guy she met. He basically was going out and, taking all her friends out and pretending to he had all this money, but
Yeah.
everything was on card. He was paying by card. And then when they joined together to buy a home, he had nothing. He had nothing
Yeah.
from it. So they lost
Yeah.
beautiful home on the lake. They lost because he had nothing. So tell me,
Mm.
did your partner make you feel sorry for him after he mistreated you? Because I heard that that's part of gaslighting.
Yeah, it was really confusing because uh like to an extent, what he would more do was after like a night of drinking,
Hmm.
the next morning, like, yes, of course, like his behavior and his language was appalling, but and after a big night of drinking, perhaps you can't remember that. However, he would also literally trash the house to the point where you couldn't see the carpet. There was cushions, cutlery, crockery literally thrown all over the floor. It looked like squatters had been living there. And I would wake up to find the house like this and the TV blaring, and he would be like lying on the couch, and he would literally downplay it. He's like, "Oh, so what? Like, what's the big deal?" And I'm like, okay, like you can try and forget the behavior and the language, but this is physical evidence. Like, hello.
Yeah.
And he would literally just downplay it. He's like, so what? Get over it.
Wow. That's violent behavior.
Yeah. Especially when, like, at that point, I had a 3-month-old newborn, and my little boy was 9.
Wow. So did he like shame you about your qualities or your traits that like they had one like he had once made you feel good about, and then all of a sudden he's turning the other way, shaming you for your qualities? Did he do such?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, yeah, he was very, very manipulative, and he twisted a lot of things, and um yeah, it's just so difficult to see. And he was so convincing as well. Like, he literally made me believe it. And that's where I lost myself so quickly, because I couldn't trust myself. So I was unable to take myself out and see what was happening, because I didn't have any trust in myself. And if I didn't have trust in myself, how could I take myself out to think that, there was something wrong here? Um, so yeah, a lot of manipulation like caused me to lose myself
Yeah.
very, very quickly. Like, when we had moved away. So that was like in the first like 9 months.
Wow. So how did you leave? Like how did you break free?
Yeah. Yeah. So when he was sent to rehab, that was when I say that we separated. Um, then we went through family court for 6 years, and now it's going on, what are we now? 7 years with
Yeah, because
the
I know when I
14.
met you, you were still going to court.
Mm. Yes, yeah, there is one final case that, it should be finished really soon. Um, yeah, so that's nearly finished. But the thing for me, so I kept seeing the psychologist, which she's been obviously a lifesaver.
Yeah.
And around, like, after that marriage. I then got into a covert narcissistic relationship. But because he was covert, I didn't recognize it, and I just thought he's so much better. Like, honestly, anything could have been better than what I had experienced. And then got rid of him, and then got into another. Like, it was that one was only I think that one was 12 months before I met my current partner, who's
Yeah, so you
amazing.
see, you go through these cycles thinking, you find the right one, and people
Yeah.
think people are thinking, like, what are you doing? But you're
Mm.
what you're doing is looking for love. You're looking to be loved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because so after the covert narcissist, I found a course that was called Breaking the Mold. So I'm like, yeah, no more toxic relationships. So that's what I was drawn to. So when I started doing that healing on the deeply rooted traumas, like all the inner child work, that was when things started to shift for me. Like, that's when I started to experience the transformation. And yeah, it has been such an incredible journey ever since then. So I did those 2 programs, and following that is when I started the Freedom Mentor to help other people experience the same thing. And it's just been like what's it called? Like, just an ongoing journey where, like, once you've had a taste of it, like, I'm not stopping. Like, I love, self-development and growth and like spirituality. It's an ongoing, like, give me more.
I know. I feel the same way because I'm like ongoing. I'm just, I did my life and health coach, and then now I'm doing my master
Yeah,
courses. So I'm gonna get my mastery because I just love the learning. So I know exactly how
yeah,
you feel. But I'm so happy for you that you found happiness. So tell us, I know you just graduated as a yoga teacher as well.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
I'm so happy for you.
Oh, thank you. I love it.
And I wanted to share with the audience your book title, because that was what caught my eyes as soon as we were in the retreat, and I go, oh my God, that's an amazing title. So tell us what the title of the book is.
It's called My Life on Eggshells.
Yep,
Yeah,
and that's exactly how I found, like I connected with you when I saw that title. I was like, okay, why is that? And then we started talking,
yeah,
and we found out we've got so much similarities. We're from different cultures, different countries, different background, and we had so much similarities in our stories. So
yeah,
I'm so happy that you found love, and I know that you're happy. I mean, I follow you, I see that you're happy, and you have a wonderful partner. So
yeah.
I'm so happy for you, and I wish you all the best that there is to offer for you, for sure.
Thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate it.
Well, I know you have to run because you have a class that you teach at 7:30. I
Yeah,
Yeah, well, my 7:30. So I want
yeah,
to thank you again. I know I definitely want you to come back on again another time so we can talk a little bit more about gaslighting. And
yeah, definitely. That'd be
because
great.
yeah, I definitely think that should be a topic on its own. Just, shedding light on this, because people don't even know what a covert narcissist is. So I
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
I want to explore this a little bit more. So
Sounds good.
yeah, so we'll try to see if we can do this again another day. Well, I know you have to run, and I thank you so much for being with us today. And have yourself a wonderful day. And thank you to all my viewers for joining in. And if there's any questions that they have for you, I'll send them to you and see if you can answer them as well. All right.
Yeah, great.
Thank you
Thank you so
so much.
much.
Have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on here.
Thank you.